So, what's the first thing you think of when you hear of a military veteran?
Somebody that's dedicated their life to serving our country and helping out. Somebody who has served our country.
Gosh, I almost want to say homelessness, actually. That comes up a lot. Mental illness, suicide rates.
To be, I guess, completely honest, as someone who's been kind of abandoned, you kind of get this image of homeless people and people not being supported and lonely people.
Suicide.
PTSD.
Homeless.
They are getting screwed because all of the stuff that they did and everything, and then we can't, as a country, we can't make sure that they have a place to live and have something to eat and be able to take care of themselves.
Okay. And from the outside perspective looking in, do you think there's enough being done for former veterans of our country?
I do not.
And why not?
Just reports of backlog at the VA, the amount of suicide within the military community. I think maybe locally here in Colorado Springs we do a pretty good job. The rest of the country, I don't see it around. I've got friends that live in other cities that are military, and they just don't take care of the military as much as they should.
Not that I'm an expert to speak on it, but no, I would not say so.
I would say for sure not.
Hell no.
I agree with her. I say no, and I'm not an expert on it either, but I feel like a lot of it is kind of doesn't have enough light shed on it. It's kind of quieted down. I know there's people trying, but I don't think their voice is loud enough.
My name is Charles Goodman Jr. Actually, I am prior Air Force retired Master Sergeant. I was a comm info guy for most of my career, which lasted pretty much 24 years. I'm currently now civil service employee. I am chief of the network operations branch in Space and Missile Center at Peterson Air Force Base.
So my name is Brandon Martinez. I served from 07 to 09. I was a 1 Charlie Oscar, aviation resource management. When I got out, I went into the oil fields. I don't do that anymore, and now I'm a diesel mechanic.
When I first joined the service, and I'm kind of an older generation military member because I came in the late 70s. And as I was saying earlier, that was during the time where they were transitioning from the Vietnam War, and everybody was pretty much that fought in the Vietnam War. The end of that particular war were now active duty members, so most of the military. For me, it would be the Air Force branch. And that had a big impact on my first impressions of the Air Force when I first joined, because a lot of those guys were the previous generation from me, and a lot of them were still reliving some of the issues that they were suffering in Vietnam. So managing and supervising wasn't like the highest priority on their list of things. So you get a different opinion, because 2 years later, it came up in a positive thing for me, because I wound up getting better supervisors, and that made me more focused and also made me more guidance on what I wanted to get out of the Air Force, get out of my career, and plan for my future. Whereas prior to that, it was more of a negative thing, because based on the people that were supervising me and my managers, I couldn't wait for my first 4 years to be up. So it was a change in environment, change in the type of management, and change in individuals that made me choose the career that I chose.
Well, I guess I could say it brought out both. Positive, because I learned how to work positively in a group. I learned how to be able to trust people. I learned how to rely on my friends. But the way it impacted me negatively was a lot bigger than positive. So I felt like, and I don't want to blame it on the military, but I felt like it turned me into a selfish person. I got married straight out of high school. And like I said, it turned me into a selfish person. So I didn't really pay attention to my wife at the time, my ex-wife. I didn't really pay attention to her, give her enough attention. She was pregnant. didn't really do anything with her while she was pregnant. I was there 30 minutes for the delivery. I felt like the military turned me into that selfish person, and I did not like it.
When I first came into the service, it was shock. It was new because, for the most part, I had never left the state of Florida. So when I got my first assignment, I volunteered for everywhere except Florida. And of course, the Air Force, in its infinite wisdom, sent me right back to Florida. But after 2 years there, they sent me to Alaska. When I got to Alaska, it was a different environment for me. That kind of changed my perspective because now I got a chance to see a different environment. I got a chance to meet different people. And also I got a chance to do a little bit more traveling because I had never been on a plane before. So flying from Florida to Alaska was like the thrill of a lifetime for me, and it was life-changing for me because I had never been on a plane before.
So I was like I said, I was in the Air Force from 07 to 09. When I was in, I got stationed in Okinawa, and while I was there, I played on a base basketball team. Ended up tearing my leg up, tore my ACL, my MCL, my PCL, and my meniscus. Rehab was taking a little bit longer than usual, so they gave me an option to get a general discharge or get 100% disability. And I knew from 11 that I wanted to be in the military, and I knew I wanted to make that a career. So I chose the general discharge under honorable conditions. 2 or 3 months before I was gonna go back in, I caught a DUI charge. So that kind of went out the window. So I've regretted that decision every day of my life.
When you join the military, you depend a lot on that they are going to prepare you for whatever career you choose in whatever theater you may wind up in. You serve in a bunch of different theaters. You could be stateside, you could be overseas, you could be in a combat zone, you could be in a non-combat zone. As far as the preparation goes, they prep you to a certain extent, but a lot of that has also comes from the individual. You have to have the proper maturity, the proper mindset that you know the environment you're going into, because you do receive the briefings on these, so this is where you're going to live. These may be the threats that you may face. How you handle that and the support that you get from the military is two different things. The military is the one that can support you up to a certain level. A lot of it becomes individual responsibility too, because if you can't handle situations, or if you can't handle those type of responsibilities, then yeah, it's going to have a major impact on you prior to you being there, while you're there, and definitely when you return.
The military actually, it's not 100% like different from the civilian world. The only difference is you are part of the government. You have people to answer to. Like in real life, you have people to answer to. Honestly, and I say it's like that because I never had to go through a deployment and have to turn that off. So that's why I say it was easier for me versus like my cousin or my brother or any of my friends that have done multiple deployments. I'm able to turn it off because I was never in their situation. Now, I can't speak for them, but I do know that whenever they had to come home, they had to do some counseling a couple times a week to try and get that out of their mindset at that point, because you're pretty much fighting to survive out there.
And when you say veterans, I always see all the statistics and the data saying, X amount of veterans, this percentage or whatever. The one thing that I never see them do is break down those numbers and saying, okay, me, I was honorably discharged. Other folks were generally discharged. But what are the people that didn't make it quite as far, that they got a BCD or they have got a dishonorable discharge? They're still veterans and they're still out there. But because of those particular type of discharges, they don't have access to those resources, because the first thing they ask you for is, can I see your ID card to see if you're eligible for these programs? And I'm not saying that whatever they did caused them to get those type of discharges. But the fact of the matter is that they still served, they still were a veteran, but they don't have the access to the same resources. And that's, again, that comes to where there's a lot of talk, and they say there's a lot of support programs out there, but are they being really implemented or balanced across the board?
It bothers me that I didn't get to go through that so I could relate to them and help them out more. Because I can put my 2 cents in and try and help them through their problems or what they're feeling. But no amount of words is gonna put me in their situation to where I understand what they're feeling. I've never been in their situation, so it frustrates me that I can't help out my cousin. I can't help out my brother. I can't help out one of my good friends. I can't, and it cripples me, and I hate that feeling. So whenever I talk to them, I try and keep service out of topics because there's nothing I can say to help them, and it bothers me that they go through so much pain, and I can't talk about it because I wasn't there.
When I left the military after 24 years, was there a bit of a transition? Yes, big time. Because now I've had a structured life, now I have to go out and build a whole new life without having the structure of serving in the military behind me, but now as a civilian. And although I'm still working for the military as a civilian, that wasn't like walking out the military door today and stepping into a civilian job. I had to do other careers before I wound up back into civil service and working for the military again. Most civilians that have never served in the military or have been in the military environment, they do not understand what you go through as an active duty member. Some of the sacrifices you have to make that they take for granted. They don't understand that you can get called at 8 o'clock at night, be sitting here in Colorado Springs. By 8 o'clock tomorrow night, you could be halfway around the world. That would never happen to a regular civilian in a civilian life.
If something's bothering you, whether it be, a mental issue or just anything, speak up. There's plenty of people that want to listen. Even if it's not anybody in the military world, a friend. I've always told all my friends that have served longer than I have, I wasn't in as long as you, so I may not be able to be 100% your brother, but I'll always be your brother because I'm your friend.
Coming from an older generation, in my experience where I've had to supervise younger personnel that have decided to leave the service after their first enlistment, there is resources out there. They may not be readily available, but that doesn't relieve you of the fact that if you need assistance, do not be afraid to ask it. Most young people, that is the biggest hang up they have. Call it pride, call it fear, whatever you want to call it. They will not go out and ask for the help that they need. Can the military do a better job on the way that people transition back? That's always been an issue, and I think it's a continued issue today. Because part of the problem is that you can talk and provide all this different type of information, but the thing about it is that a lot of talk, a lot of reading material, a lot of speeches is one thing, but if nobody's actually following it up and nobody's actually imposing what they're doing, then it's just all speak to say that, hey, yeah, we're doing this, that, and the other. But in reality, it's not really being done.
Do you know of any tools that could help bring more awareness to military veterans' mental health?
I haven't really ever heard of anything.
No, my daughter is a vet, and all we do is go to the VA.
A couple small things, but no, not really.
I don't really see anything advertising to support them.
Raising awareness of what's happening out there. A lot of times we get into our own little sphere of reality and don't realize what's going on and what might be important to us.
I think just getting veteran stories in the spotlight more is probably a good way to do it. It's kind of one of those things where unless it impacts you, you don't really care about it. So just trying to get the stories out more, I think.